You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So tonight we're discussing murder at Penwood Manor.
Yes, it's so great to be back with you again. It seemed like just yesterday we were talking about the other 4 books in the Harwood Mysteries series. And so I guess I should just introduce myself, right? Say hi, I'm Antony Kolenc, and the author of the Harwood Mysteries series. So why don't we start, since we want to start right with book 5, let me share my screen so that you could get an image of book 5, Murder at Penwood Manor, Loyola Press. So this is the 5th book in my Harwood Mysteries series. And you can see what's really exciting about this book cover is it has the main suspect in the murder right up there in the front. This guy that you're looking at, his name is Laurence, and he is a Crusader recently returned from the Holy Land. The year of the book takes place in actually 1187, and so by the end of the book, those of you who know your history of the Crusades, you'll realize that 1187 was the year that Saladin, the Sultan in the Middle East, the Muslim leader, actually conquered Jerusalem and most of the Holy Land back for Islam, and that triggered the Third Crusade, which starts in 1189 with Richard the Lionheart coming. So on this book cover, you can see Laurence, the Crusader. You can also see Father Philip. And then in the very background there, you can see Xan in his green tunic and Lucy holding the lantern. And those are, of course, 2 of the main characters that have been following me through the series. But so book 5 takes place in 1187. Xan returns to Harwood Abbey, which is where we get the name of the mysteries, the Harwood Mysteries. And he's there kind of on a visit with his friend Lucy, who is actually at the nunnery there. She is a novice nun. And he comes with a few people. He comes with his Uncle William, and he comes with his good friend and potential paramour, Christina from Lincoln also. And so we have Xan, Christina, and Uncle and Father Philip returning back to where Xan started the series at Harwood Abbey. And one of the manors, because, the Benedictine monks back in the Middle Ages were, large landholders in England. And so this is going on during the time when feudalism and the manorial system was in place. And so it wasn't unusual for the Benedictines sometimes to have many manors. They were very rich, actually. This particular abbey is not particularly rich, but they do have 2 manors that they basically own. And one of them is Penwood Manor. And so book 5 is a murder mystery in the series. It's the one I've been wanting to write, a murder mystery. And so each of my books in the series sort of does something a little bit different. And book 5 is a whodunit murder mystery where a blacksmith gets killed, and the main suspect is this Laurence, who just came back from the Crusades, and they think he's guilty, but there's something the matter with him. He's not acting quite right. They're not sure what happened to him when he was in the Holy Land. Some theories that are thrown out throughout the novel, or maybe he's possessed by demons, perhaps, because he dreams of demons and this kind of thing. So they don't know quite what's the matter with him, but he's not in his right mind. And Xan and Lucy and Christina think that he may, in fact, be innocent of the murder and that somebody else did it. But they only have a few days to try to solve the actual crime, because the sheriff is going to come back soon and hang Laurence in the gallows for this murder. unless they can come up with evidence that he's innocent.
Mhm.
And so that sort of is sort of the big overarching kind of story of Murder at Penwood Manor. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on beyond that, but I'll just start that off, and I'll toss it to you and see what you think.
It sounds pretty interesting. It's it sounds like it's a fun, very clever and very fun story with a lot of ins and outs, I bet, so that people go down the wrong path thinking the wrong person is the murderer.
Yeah, I grew up reading Agatha Christie novels when I was a kid. And in fact, there have been some good Agatha Christie movies coming out lately. And so I wanted, the chance to sort of do that. Like the other books in the series are all a little bit different. And I know we talked not that long ago, but you remember I talked about book one, Shadow in the Dark, which is kind of the introduction to all the world building that goes on in this time in the Middle Ages. And but it's really kind of a story about suffering and death and, why do bad things happen to good people and this kind of thing. And book two, The Haunted Cathedral, which you could see Xan and Lucy on the cover in that one. That one kind of was a sort of a ghost story, if you will, because they're investigating whether there's actually a ghost in this cathedral. They think it might be the ghost of a little girl living in this cathedral. And that's, one of the kind of the spooky things going on in there. Book three, The Fire of Eden, that I'm showing you the cover, has this guy that looks a little bit like one of the, wizards from Lord of the Rings or something.
Yeah.
Book three is actually a jewel thief, kind of whodunit. This jewel gets stolen. You got this cast of strange characters who all potentially had access. And so it's kind of like that. And book four, The Merchant's Curse, which is what we talked about last time I was on your show. And that's got, you can see this cover, which won a book award for the cover, has this woman on the front. And in the back, you can't really see them very large, but there's Xan and Christina kind of peeking in at in the back there. And that one was kind of like a supposed witch story. And so I say things like purported and supposed, because although there's a lot of spooky vibes in the series, that's meant to really attract, young readers, ages 10 and up, especially, older middle school, high school, especially. It's got a lot of that kind of, suspenseful, kind of scary vibe to it. But in reality, the books are very, family friendly. There's no, occult, anything that's trying to, lure our kids to the dark side. It's the opposite, but there are some pretty spooky storylines that Xan and Christina and Lucy wind up investigating throughout the Harwood mysteries. But it was high time for a murder mystery because although people die in the other books, we don't really have a murder to solve until this one. So, yeah,
sounds pretty good. So, I mean, when you think of, you were saying even up to high school, but I know that a lot of adults love those books when they read high school level books because they're so much fun.
They are. I do. Yeah. I get a lot of parents and grandparents who buy the series for their kids or grandkids, but they always want to read them themselves. And I wrote them, I wrote them on several levels. I was inspired by like the Lord of the Rings when I was growing up, and I still will go back and read that series, once every few years. And it works on so many levels, it can appeal to younger people, but so I wanted to write something that was like that too, even though the main audience was meant to be younger, there's actually so many different levels of spirituality and messaging and, complex things going on that I kind of feel like they work, for any age. But yeah, it is fun to read. When my kids were going through high school, I have 5 kids, and they were reading different books that teenagers read. I wound up reading, The Hunger Games and Harry Potter and all that kind of stuff. And I can't say I'm a huge fan of some of the messaging in some of those books. that was one of the reasons why I wanted to write a series like this, where you could kind of have the, kind of that intense, suspenseful kind of, messaging to the kids, but also have it be on topics that, parents are not going to freak out about. So, yeah. So Murder at Penwood Manor actually does that also. In each of the books, I try to do something a little different about, kind of what is one of the sort of moral things going on in the background. When we spoke last time, we were talking about book 4, and book 4, it was almost a case study on the book of Ecclesiastes, which is my favorite book in the Old Testament. And so in book 4, The Merchant's Curse, all of the characters are sort of dealing with these different vanities of life that they're focused on, whether it's fame or wealth or good looks or, just, having friends in high places, all the things that we cling to in this world. And if you remember the book of Ecclesiastes, King Solomon, or the voice of King Solomon, is saying, vanity of vanities, everything is vanity. And he goes through and talks about the wisdom he learned in his life. So that was like a big theme in book 4. But for book 5, I wanted to look at something that I don't really see talked about a heck of a lot. And it's not something I think that's also very understood. And that is the vice of envy, and how sinister a vice that really is. And, we often mix it up with jealousy, and we kind of use the two words synonymously. And so what I did with book 5 is, of course, it's a murder mystery. Envy is, in fact, the source of the first murder ever recorded in the Bible, right? With Cain and Abel. Abel offers his sacrifice to God, which is accepted. Cain's sacrifice is rejected. Cain is envious of his brother, and because he can't handle it, he decides to go out and murder his brother, and so that at least his brother won't, have this thing that he doesn't have. And that's really kind of the sinister heart of envy, which is why it can be associated with murder, is because, people will sometimes do horrible things, really just because they would like to have what someone else has, or at least deny that person what they have. And so that's kind of a theme that goes through the book. Different characters are sort of dealing with different levels of envy. And of course, envy is critical to why the murder takes place in this book too. And so Xan, my main character, and Christina and Lucy are all sort of, as they're going through solving this, you kind of can see what happens with, different people's lives when they envy kind of guide them to one extent or another. And, we're all sinners, and we all struggle with various vices. And I'm sure at some point in our own lives, we've all been envious. And so it could happen to anybody. And so you could kind of see it even in some of the really better characters or holier characters. If you don't watch out, envy can sneak up on you. And so you kind of see how that plays out too, in the context of this murder mystery. So I kind of like to do that kind of thing with the books. And in book 5, it was time to talk about envy.
Well, it's a pretty bad problem.
Yeah, I suppose with all the social media and celebrity status and all these, YouTube and, TikTok sensations, we're teaching our teenagers to envy all these other teens who have, all these followers, or they look prettier than they are, or whatever else. Yeah. And they want what they have. And actually you see it play itself out. Teenagers tearing each other down on social media, on the comments, or, and if you really drill down, I think you see a lot of that is probably generated by envy. They feel like they're not good enough, and they want to, they want to take it away from somebody else who seems to be successul.
Yeah.
So that's going on really in the background of all my different characters also in 5. So I know last time I was here, we talked about each of the books, a little bit more. And I know that, your listeners can always go back and talk about some of that. Um, But the other vices or, kind of moral themes that I wind up exploring in some of the other books,
Sure.
book 3, the Jewel book, The Fire of Eden, with the kind of Gandalf guy on the cover. The theme of this one was really about pride. My main character, Xan, kind of gets full of himself in this book because he's had so much success solving mysteries. He suddenly thinks he's like the best mystery solver in the world. And so he thinks he can just do everything by himself because he's really getting kind of puffed up with pride. And you kind of see how that plays itself out. And of course, the jewel that gets stolen, the Fire of Eden, Eden's fire is the name of the jewel, also is sort of a source of pride. It was, the history of the jewel kind of has its background in pride. And again, all the different characters you can see in different ways they're struggling with pride. Which in book 5, Murder at Penwood Manor, we get a little discussion about pride and envy and how are they related to each other. Because, a lot of times the two really go together. You're envious, you want something, and you want to do it, your way. You want to do it yourself. You want to be the center of everything. And so the two can go together. That's how Satan, right, falls. He's all of God's power. He gets puffed up with pride that he wants to be the top guy.
Yeah.
So there's even some of that. So that's interesting. Book 3 and 5 kind of have there are some correlations there. Book 2 is about forgiveness. Xan has to forgive the bandit who killed his family in book 1, and that's the haunted cathedral. And and while he's kind of struggling about this ghost mystery and trying to solve that, he's also struggling with this bandit who has become repentant. He's in jail now, and he wants Xan to forgive him, and Xan doesn't want to have anything to do with forgiveness because he's been hurt so much. And that's another thing that, gosh, we're all facing that too. Our kids are facing that. So seeing how that plays out, what happens if you decide not to forgive? What does that do to you? What does that do to your relationships? That kind of plays itself out in the background of book 2. And book 1 is really kind of about suffering and how do you handle death and suffering, and when you lose people in your life that you're like, why is this happening to me? And then book 4, like I said, was about vanity and that kind of thing. So so each of the books kind of explore these different themes. But in the context, like the kids probably don't even realize it if you're reading it, because it just reads like, an adventure mystery, it's set in historical times.
Right.
So, where do you want to go then with this next? I can talk about a lot of things related to these books.
Yeah, by all means, just talk about what you want to. It's you're very interesting when you do that.
Thank you. I also, like you, I'm also a college professor. I teach at a law school. So, you realize at some point, if you're going to keep your students awake, you got to try to keep them interested in whatever you're talking about.
Yeah.
Let me talk a little bit about why I even wrote this series. We were, like I said, I have 5 kids. We were homeschoolers for a lot of those years. In fact, I write a column still for Practical Homeschooling magazine. So I know I have a lot of homeschoolers who are near and dear to my heart. And this is the kind of series that homeschoolers would love because, I kind of wanted a series that not only had all kind of the bells and whistles of like a Harry Potter, but also was historically based. So I can kind of, talk about a really interesting time in history.
Right.
And then also had all these kind of positive messages and kind of learning things, but that all of that stuff kind of is organic to the plot of a kind of a mystery adventure. At the end of the day, each of the stories reads like a mystery adventure. And, if you happen to learn stuff and get good messages, that's sort of like, oh, did that happen too? I don't want my readers to, feel like everything's planted here for, for that reason. That's not really good writing at that point.
No.
And so I wanted that kind of a series out there. And, I started many years ago writing the first one, Shadow in the Dark. It took a long time, many versions of Shadow in the Dark, before I finally got it to Loyola Press. And actually, I rewrote it once again. I had rewritten that book 3 times, but I rewrote it once more for Loyola Press when they took the series in 2020, and it came out. And then since then, like I said, there's been 5 books, and book 6 is going to be coming out next October. So book 5 comes out October 2023. In fact, in just 2 weeks, it'll launch. People can go pre-order it now even. But book 6, I am just putting the finishing touches on as we speak. Literally this week, I'm supposed to get the manuscript to Loyola. And that will be the end of the series. We've decided we're going to end it at 6. I wasn't sure. Last time I talked to you, I said, I have a whole nother trilogy in my mind about the Crusade.
I remember.
Crusade.
Yeah.
That's going to have to come at another time, perhaps. We decided 6 is a nice, good number to end it with. And so I'm putting all sorts of great series ending, excitement into the final book. Kind of all these other books have been sort of leading up to what's going to happen in book 6.
Wow.
So maybe we'll talk about that next year. But so that's going to end the series. But I wrote the series so that you could have a place where, just teens and like you said, even adults, but, teens were my primary thought on this, where they could go and feel like they had a really good, good series to read, and that they liked the characters.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a little bit about the characters then.
Yeah.
And let me start with my female characters, because although the book is written from the point of view of the male character, Xan, I've actually taken a lot of effort to try to have some good place of primacy for my 2 female, co-protagonists, Lucy and Christina. In fact, Lucy, I've been writing a series of short stories. Are you familiar with CatholicTeenBooks.com?
Yes.
So I'm a member of CatholicTeenBooks.com, which is a great place where there's about 16 of us authors who are all sort of writing for teens. I mean, not just Catholic teens, but generally we're all Catholic authors, and we're trying to write not necessarily similar books, but books at that age range that have, the kinds of things I've been talking about.
Right.
All of us authors on that website are interested in. You can find just about any kind of a book there on CatholicTeenBooks.com. But I've been they've been releasing a series of anthologies, and the last 2 anthologies they released, one was released during Lent this year called Ashes. Ashes, Visible and Invisible is the name of that one. And the one that was released around St. Patrick's Day 2 years ago was called Treasures, Visible and Invisible. And I bring these up because in each of those 2 two anthologies, I have a Lucy short story. I wanted Lucy to kind of have her own, spotlight on her. She kind of is with Xan from the beginning in book 1 all the way through book 6, actually. And so I have a series of Lucy mysteries, and 2 of them are in these anthologies. I've got one that's a standalone. I've got 2 more planned to release, and then I'll probably release a Lucy anthology. But so Lucy is a really amazing character. She is, starts off at age 11 in book 1. By the time we get to book 6, she's about 15, like Xan. So her and Xan are aged the same. And, she grows up in England at a manor, living with her, 3 older brothers and her dad. Her mom dies when she's, at birth. So she's raised around all these men. And she wants to, she winds up at the Abbey because her father has to travel. So he drops her off essentially at the convent or nunnery, where some girls are left sometimes, so they'll be safe while their fathers are not around and they don't have a mother. And so that's how she meets Xan, because he comes to Harwood Abbey and she's there at the nunnery, just sort of hanging out for a few months, waiting for her dad to come back. But she's a very holy girl. She's very oriented towards God. She sort of is in many ways Xan's conscience, and his faith mentor, if you will. And she's got a real pure heart. Just a really, I mean, she's not perfect. She's got her issues. And you see they come out, especially in the short stories. You get to see some of her issues. But she's a really sweet girl. But she's really oriented, towards heaven and towards God and living life. Xan, my main character, protagonist, male. He's a great kid, but he struggles with a lot of stuff. And in a lot of ways, Lucy kind of is his conscience on some of those things. Like I said, in book 2, he does not want to forgive. In book 3, he's proud, and so you see him sort of play out some of these things. In book 1, he wants to despair because he's, feels like his whole world has crumbled on him and he doesn't know what to do now. So he's a great character, but he's a very human character, and Lucy is a good counterweight to that. But I needed another female character also to sort of be a counterbalance to Lucy. And that's where Christina came in. In book 2, Xan and Lucy travel from the Abbey. They wind up in a major city in England called Lincoln. And in Lincoln, there's this cathedral. And there's in 1185, there's a major historical event that occurs in this cathedral. And so Xan and Lucy wind up being in the cathedral when the event occurs. At the climax of the book. So, but when he gets to Lincoln, he meets Christina, and Christina is a year older than him, sort of like this very sassy, like it. She's a little older than him. She's very pretty, kind of a redhead, and is much more of a worldly kind of a girl. Not that she's a bad girl. She's a very good girl, but she kind of has her focus. Her parents want her to marry a rich man, because she's so pretty and she's grown up in the city. She just has a different view on life and what it is that she should get out of life. And so you kind of see her and Lucy are kind of good counterbalances. And Xan kind of gets stuck in this, he's a teenage boy, so he's got these 2 pretty girls around him. Of course, he's going to wind up being torn. So there's a little bit of a romance that goes on as a kind of a subplot throughout the series. And a little even bit of this, is Xan going to wind up marrying one of these girls one day, and which one? And how do the girls handle that, when they have to be around each other too? So there's that's kind of fun. And book 5, Murder at Penwood Manor, really finally gets to really bring that into the spotlight because, Lucy has been at the Abbey. Xan has been in Lincoln with Christina. In book 4, Lucy didn't even make an appearance in book 4, except a letter that is written. So book 4 was all about Xan and Christina. And now in book 5, Xan and Christina travel back to the Abbey and they wind up sort of being, with Lucy again. And so now you've got this brewing romance between Xan and one of the girls. And you kind of see, and of course the theme of the book is envy. So that can easily work into the plot too. So, there's a sweet romance going on, in the background here too. So I didn't want, my female readers to feel like this was a book series that was just meant for boys. Cause, the main character's a boy, it's in the Middle Ages. There's lots of, adventures and swashbuckling and spooky mysteries. But every series needs to have like the Hermione of Harry Potter. She's such a cool character in that series, and you need to have some really strong female characters. And so I think I've got 2 of them, and I love both of them. I think I like Christina even more because she's so much fun. She puts Xan in his place constantly, and it's just a lot of fun. So there's a lot of that kind of fun going on in book 5 between Xan and Christina and then Lucy and how that all plays out, which I won't spoil. But so yeah, those are my 3 main characters. Of course, there's other characters, some mentors, priests and monks and, nuns at the Abbey and things like that. And so there's lots of discussion that goes on, about spiritual things because, it takes place in an abbey. Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, so that's that kind of sets up, I guess, we've got the main plot points. We've got our main characters. You know why I've written it. I guess I should probably tell you, how are the books doing? And I'd like to say they're doing great because the series has actually won over a dozen book awards. Each one of the books has got at least one gold medal. Some of them have multiple gold medals from, Catholic Media Association, the Association of Catholic Publishers, the Illumination Awards, the Independent Press Awards, all these different, and I say that not to just puff up myself with pride, but to really pat Loyola Press on the back, because they went out of their way to produce a really high quality book here. They've got maps inside. You already saw the artwork on the front. They have these maps inside, everything. They have sections in here about, how you should read historical fiction. They came up with curriculum companions, book club companions. You can use this in schools. You can use this in your book club. You can use it in your homeschool group. And they just put a lot of, effort in the editing of the books. And so I think that, has paid off really well because they've been very well received, by the critics. And so that makes me feel good as a writer too, of course. But I say all that to just say, if anybody is wondering about the series and, but what's the writing going to be like? It is hopefully pretty good writing. At least Loyola tried to make sure that they took what I gave them and then they made it better. So big thanks to them for that. And I guess I should also mention that there are schools that are using the books, especially Shadow in the Dark, because it's the first book in the series. There are several schools that I've been talking to this year. I like to go and do school visits, talk about writing, talk about, the hero's journey, way of writing, which is, the classic storytelling method in Western civilization, really.
Right.
Talk about the Middle Ages or the Crusades or whatever the school wants me to talk about with their readers. Right. But I've been to several of these schools and they're using it as like supplemental material for church history, for social studies. So I'm really thrilled to see that, because that really was getting to the heart of why I wanted this kind of a series. So I think that kind of covers the waterfront on the books for you. What else might you be interested in knowing about?
Well, I'm just, obviously you're not going to stop. So, and you have some more things planned. I am imagining you're going to be doing this until you're very old.
Some people would say I already am very old, but I appreciate that. My kids would say that, at least. And my wife's been telling me that a lot lately. You're old. She's only 1 year younger than me, but she always says I'm always going to be younger than you. So I guess that works out okay. Like I said, we're going to have book 6 come out. That will round out the series. I am working on several other projects, though. I'm really excited. Maybe I'll come back and talk to you in around Lent if you'll have me back. I have a book coming out from our Sunday Visitor, just in time for Lent and for the final year of the Eucharistic renewal. Sunday Visitor wanted me to write a middle school mystery that would really bring forth the kind of the Eucharist in some way. And so I wrote a book that's going to come out called Penny and the Stolen Chalice. And in that one, there's a 6th grade girl who's the main character, and she's got to solve a mystery of a chalice that gets stolen off of the altar during a school mass. And so that allows her to kind of have to learn about the Eucharist as she's trying to figure out who would steal the chalice, that's been consecrated and, in the middle of mass. A terrible thing. It takes place at a Catholic school. So that one's a lot of fun. That one's geared more for, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade mostly. So it's a slightly younger group than my Harwood Mysteries. But that's coming out. And then I've got another series that I'm going to be doing with Chrism Press, starting next year. That's really for college age and 20-something adults. So I'm covering all those age ranges. So I'm going to be busy writing for a few more years. So the other thing I just would mention, I know we're going to have to leave in a few minutes, but the other thing I would mention is while I've been doing my writing, I also started a podcast and radio show like yourself called The Shepherd's Pie. And that airs on a Catholic radio station in Massachusetts and comes out essentially once a week. And then I have it come out as a podcast after that.
Right.
Season 1 and 2 really focused on youth issues. It was, talking with a lot of authors of young adult fiction and teen fiction and talking about all different issues that involved youth. For season 3, which I just started, I've kind of changed my focus a little bit and expanded it. The tagline for season 3 is The Shepherd's Pie, a slice of faith for our messy lives. And I kind of am talking about practical ways that we can use our faith to help us get through all of the different, curveballs that life throws at us. We've all had them. And so some of these are going to involve youth and youth issues. Some of them are going to involve, the elderly, the sick, married couples. The first one I actually have is with a psychologist who talks about being single and having faith as a single person, and how do you do that? So you can find that podcast on the same website as you can find my books, and that's just my name, AntonyKolenc.com. I have another website for the Harwood Mysteries called theharwoodmysteries.com, but you can get to all of that through my author website, AntonyKolenc.com. And so, so I would encourage anybody, if they want to check out that. I interview people. It's 25 minutes to 30 minutes each interview. And, we just talk about different things. It's oftentimes we are talking about writing, because a lot of my guests are authors. So we get them to talk about their books, just like you're giving me the chance to talk about my books. But I interrupt them a lot more than you do. I don't let them just go on and on and on like this.
Well, people listen to this radio show not to hear about me, but to hear about the author. So I just kind of guide it gently.
That's how I feel too. I'm a little less gentle though, but we have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun talking about things, and it's really, your listeners should know there is a thriving publication business out there. Not business, that's not the right word, because nobody's making money at this, but somebody might be making money. I'm not sure who it is though. But there's a thriving publication business out there of books that have great Christian Catholic messages for little kids, for teenagers, for adults. You just got to know where to find them. And, as I mentioned, CatholicTeenBooks.com is a great place to go for teenage stuff. In fact, I think you just interviewed Amanda Lauer the other day. I saw.
I did.
Amanda's a good friend of ours that I met her through CatholicTeenBooks.com, and also the Catholic Writers Guild, which, we've got a lot of Catholic writers out there writing for people of all ages. So if you're a Catholic and you're a writer, check out the Catholic Writers Guild. Honestly, that's how I got my contract with Loyola. It's because I was involved with the Catholic Writers Guild. Loyola was at one of their conferences, and I was able to be introduced to their acquisitions editor. And pretty much everything I've done in writing has been because I was able to be part of the Catholic Writers Guild. So you can find them easily just by Googling them. If you're somebody who wants to be a writer and you're not quite sure what you're doing, or you are sure what you're doing and you just want to network with other Catholic writers, that's a good place to go. That's where you'll find me. I usually have conferences online once a year and live once a year, and I'm usually speaking at both of them. So it's a good organization.
I joined last year.
Oh, good. Have you been? Well, I didn't get to see you in Chicago last year. I hope maybe you'll come join us this year.
Yeah. Well, as you know, my husband died last November, so I really didn't have the oomph to do. I mean, I worked That's the only thing I do is work.
Right.
But it takes recovery time.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. There's that grieving process, that first year, especially. I think it's tough for folks to figure out their lives at that.
Because everything that you've ever done that you will do on an annual basis, like the holidays, the birthdays, every one of them is different than it was in the past.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, it is. But I am looking forward to going. I did go to the online one last year, but I would like to actually go to one. And
definitely, yeah. The online one is already registering again for this year. It's going to be in February 2024. You can find all the registration information on the Catholic Writers Guild website. I'm actually giving a talk there, believe it or not on writing, but on podcasting, because this will now be my third season doing the Shepherd's Pie. And so I'm sort of giving a talk about all of the mistakes not to do, like I did, and then just some practical things about, tips on, what to do if you're going to start podcasting. And so, they're always looking for different types of talks too. You've got such a wealth of background. I'd love to see you get involved and give a talk on something.
Oh, yeah. I gave many talks when I was young, but I suppose I could do it again if forced.
If forced. Okay. That tells us a lot right there.
Yeah. Well, as we get older, our interests change too. I'm significantly older than you, so you don't really know this yet. But yeah, I was going to go to the live conference, but just couldn't get the gumption up.
Well, yeah, I understand now that you're saying that, but
yes, I write memoir, and a brutal memoir about lower class living. So I will probably continue along that vein, because I'm very interested in Catholic social teaching. I taught it for years, and I've looked. I mean, I'm 73, and so I lived through the 60s with the race issues, and things haven't gotten that much better. I mean, I still have. I have had people in class that can barely read who've graduated from high school.
Yeah,
and it tends to be certain groups, and it's like there's something wrong here. So that's the kind of thing that I'm more interested in.
Yeah, I see it in law school too, believe it or not. I mean, as accomplished as you would think law students have to be, the reading and writing skills they're getting even in college are not what they used to be.
No.
So it's a constant challenge, just getting their writing, especially their writing, to improve, and getting their, reading, cases is tough. So that's why they need to read the Harwood Mysteries when they're when they're teenagers, and other Catholic teen books, so they can get their reading and comprehension skills up. But anyway, I know we're just about out of time here, but just wanted to say thank you for giving me the chance to talk again about the books, and to plug my website and my podcast. And I think people will pre-order the books. Sometimes people ask me, well, can I just, start with book 5? And the answer is yes. I wrote all of the books so there was enough backstory so you could pick up any book, and as long as you're an astute reader, you should be fine. But I always say, why? Why would you want to start with book 5? Start with book 1, because book 5 has spoilers in it about book 4 and book 3 and book 2. Start with 1 and follow the characters as they're maturing and growing with things, So don't start with book 5 unless that's the only way I'm going to get you to get book 5, in which case start with book 5 and then go back and read the other one.
Yeah. Well, so as soon as you get through with the next one, make sure you give me a call. We'll do this again.
Absolutely.
You're one of the fun. I
Thank you,
smile
Cynthia.
and laugh a lot during these interviews. Some of them I'm just like,
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. As a podcaster, you run into that every once in a while, for sure. So
Yeah.
good. Well, I'm glad I made the cut then. Thank you.
Yep.
And God bless you and in your ministry, what you're doing. And I hope to see you maybe in Chicago next year. That'd be great. We can meet in person.
All righty.
All right.
Shall we close with prayer?
Please. Yes.
Yep. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Father,
Right.
Holy Spirit. Okay, well, thank you again, and just don't forget me when you've got something else written. Just, let me know, and we'll do this again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cynthia. Take care.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
Thank you for listening to a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up when knowledge takes flight.